history traces all aspects of the course of human civilization since its earliest times. Over the years, the world has been divided into many countries which differ from each other in the ways in which they live. Studying past events tells us a lot about our ancestors, like how they lived, what they ate, what kind of clothes they wore, the kinds of shelters or houses they lived in, their beliefs, their leisure activities, their festivals, the sort of difficulties they faced, and how they overcame them, etc. We also learn about various aspects of the lives of kings, priests, merchants, hunters, gatherers, art and artisans, musicians, and scientists. There are two ways in which we can understand the history of any country. One, by careful observation of reliable source material, and by adopting a rational approach to accept or reject historical interpretations. How does one get hold of reliable source material? This is done by excavating, digging up old historical sites. We unearth, dig up various objects such as pieces of crockery, ornamented brick, jewelry, etc. Relics, old remains like these give us valuable information about the people who used these products, how these objects were made, the circumstances people lived in, what was done by various sections of society for a living, their outlook on life, their type of government, etc. History. Prehistory. There are no written records of this period. Men had lived on earth for thousands of years before they learned the art of writing. So, there are no written records to rely on. Thus, the study of the early stages of human history is entirely based on the material remains left by early man. Remains left by early man. Period. There are written records of this period. Till the 19th century, little was known about the prehistoric period. Around the 19th century, scholars began to dig at places where prehistoric men had once lived. This brought to light tools, pottery, crude jewelry, bones of ancient men and animals, etc., depending on the site. After analyzing these, historians came to the conclusion that the history of man began about 4 million years ago in Africa. Below the mountain ranges lie the great plains of the Indus and Ganges. These plains are very fertile. In the beginning, there were dense forests in this region. As more and more people settled down on these fertile plains, small settlements grew in clearing the forests. These became villages and later towns. In the later period, many cities developed along the banks of river Ganga and its tributaries. In the northern plains, many empires including those of Magad, the Mauryas and the Guptas rose, flourished and fell. To the south of these plains are the Vindhya mountain ranges. These ranges separate the northern plains from the southern part of the country. The southern peninsula has an elevated plateau with numerous rivers flowing. Evidence of early human settlement has been found in the valley systems of these rivers. There were a number of ports in the eastern and western coasts of the peninsula. Trade with foreign countries took place from these ports. One such port was Surat. Archaeological evidence reveals that the people of Surat traded with the Phoenicians about 3,000 years ago. Over the years, despite natural barriers like mountains, rivers, deserts, etc., people started traveling all over the subcontinent. Trade probably began when people of one tribe came into contact with those of the other tribes and wished to exchange their product. This led to the barter system. Those who had managed to domesticate animals often used them as beasts of burden. Traders used them to carry agricultural products to distant places. As a result, commerce was born. Some people became full-time traders. Names of the land. Our country has different names like India, Bharat, and Hindustan. The word India came from the word Indus. The word Indus came from the original Sanskrit name of the river, which is Sindhu. The Iranians and the Greeks, who came from the northwest, called it the Hindos or the Indos, and the land to the east of the river was called India. In course of time, the country came to be known as India in Greek and Hind in Persia. The name Bharat or Bharatvarsha was given to the country after the name of an ancient clan tribe, the Bhartas. Later on, the word Hind became Hindustan. Sources of Indian history. Literary, archaeological, written record, foreign account, religious literature, secular literature, archaeological sources, study of ancient buildings, monuments, works of art, coins, pottery, and tools belonging to the past is called archaeology. The excavations at Harappa helped us to know something about the Harappan culture. These excavations gave us some details about the culture which flourished in northwest India about 5,000 years ago. Epigraphy. Epigraphy is the study of written records engraved on stone or copper plate. James Prinsep, an official of the Kolkata Mint and secretary of the Asiatic Society of Bengal, was the first to interpret the Brahmi script and was thus able to read the edicts of Mauryan rule Ashoka, which were inscribed in that language. Elsewhere in the world, Rosetta is an ancient town of Egypt where inscriptions going back about 5,000 years ago were found. The stone slab in question, now in the British Museum in London, is the famous Rosetta Stone, which was discovered by Napoleon Bonaparte's army in Egypt. The inscriptions were in 3 different languages, Greek and 2 forms of Egyptian. The pictorial letters represent the names of kings and queens respectively. Since Greek was known to scholars, the Egyptian pictorial writing next to it could finally be understood.